Hey everyone, my name's Coach Ryan Franks. I'm with Rodeo Gym, and I'm so excited about the Rodeo Gym performance coaching subscriptions. This might be the very first video that you're going to see in here. And what I'm so excited about this program is that not only am I going to be taking the strategies that I learned over the last 18 years, the things that I'm learning right now, the wisdom that's been poured onto me about how to have a mentally tough mind. But the most important thing that I think about this is applying biblical principles to this program. The important thing is applying truth. And the reason why that is, whether you're a believer or not, this is going to be a program for you because I know this, that there is something that you're believing that is actually a lie, that you believe is a truth about either your performance or who you are as a person, how you think about things, and it does in fact affect the cycle that you find yourself in, whether you find yourself in a slump, whether you find yourself in nervous breakdowns, whether you find yourself in just this area of not being able to really have a clutch performance. That's a problem. So there's this thing called a stronghold, which is a lie that you believe to be a truth that you hold in your mind. And the big thing about strongholds is usually they get developed from people we love, like our mom, our dad, our brothers or sisters, our coaches, our friends. And what do I mean by that? Well, I actually have a client right now with me who has a stronghold, and he believes that he can actually break through in the short round because in times past, he's gotten to the short round. He's super excited. He's roped amazing. He gets there, and guess what happens? He messes up. He breaks the barrier. He misses his calf. He does something that he normally doesn't do. And his parents in the background are talking to me at our lessons going, I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know why he's having this problem. Is there something wrong with him? Blah, blah, blah. And you can imagine this kid who's hearing these things starts believing these things to be who he is, that he's not a finisher, that he's not somebody that overcomes these things. And so he's built up in his head that he can do really good, except when all the chips are on him, whenever the pressure's on him, whenever he's getting ready to win the championship buckle or the whatever it may be. And you can imagine that this lie of his parents who are saying something actually becomes something that he believes to be his problem or truth. So today, why it's so important that we have biblical truth is because the scripture says the only thing that breaks strongholds is the word of God. So we have to have the truth. So today I'm very excited to bring you a message about having automatic success secrets, getting out of the state of trying. We have to get out of the state of trying. I don't know about you, but have you ever been trying super hard to get a result? And it seems like the harder you try, the worse it gets. Or at least for sure it's happened to me. And what's even more frustrating is whenever I've been in these places where I'm trying really hard to get a result and I see someone else who doesn't even look like they're trying and they're getting the result that I want. And sometimes it's even the person that I personally feel like hasn't put in the work. They just are simply going out there. They're relaxed. They don't even think they're going to do well, and they go and do well. Where maybe I feel like I've been working all week, and then I get to the rodeo and I get pressured up and I go out there and I just mess it up. And I wonder, oh my gosh, why is this happening? Well, I want to tell you about this mindset of trying, why it's so dangerous, why we need to get out of it, and how that we can, as athletes, get in a place of flow. So there's two things that I want to talk about today that I believe are going to revolutionize and blow your mind. The first thing is, how do we get out of a state of trying? How do we get out of that? And the second thing is, how do I get confidence? That's what everybody needs. It's what everybody wants. And I'm actually going to give something to you that I believe is going to make a lot of sense, but something that you weren't prepared for. So are you ready? Let's do this thing. So before I get into it, I always like to tell how I earned it or how I learned it. It's a story based upon my life that it's very real, that nobody can argue with me on it at all. But I want to prove this point of trying. Whenever I was in college, I remember this particular day. It was a Friday, and we had a college rodeo on Saturday. And I got dog sick Friday night, and it was awful. And I didn't even want to go to the rodeo the next day. In fact, I actually had my parents drive hours from where they were, pick up my horse, take it to the rodeo. And I basically spent most of that Saturday healing, trying to restore whatever I had lost the night before because I was up in the perf on Saturday. So they drove my horse up there. I ended up coming later in the day. I get there And I want to tell you something. I was so focused on surviving. I didn't care if I ran a monster bull or a cheetah or a lion or whatever you put in that chute. I did not care. I was just in this state of let me rope my calf and let me just get back home. And so I was in such a state of not even caring, not even worried about trying to do anything because I didn't expect myself to really perform, that guess what happened? I went out there, I roped this calf, jerked him over, come up, won the round at the college rodeo. And the crazy thing is, you would think I would be elated and excited. And I was on the inside, but I was also so concerned with getting back to the trailer so I didn't throw up so I could unsaddle and get back home. And that was so funny to me. And there's another story of when I was about 13, 14 years old. I was just getting into roping, and I was at the point where I'd gotten good enough over the last couple of years then to actually start competing, but I didn't actually have a horse. But my buddy had a horse, and he said, "Man, why don't you come to this jackpot?" He says, "You can ride my horse." And I just laughed back then because sometimes we come up from humble beginnings when we don't know anything and we're just trying to get into the sport. And my parents didn't know anything. I come from a generation, or I come from a family that neither my mom or dad rodeoed. So I really had to figure everything out on my own through other coaches and mentors. And I remember we went to this roping, and my buddy, who was a lot smaller than me, had a smaller saddle. And so he would rope in the breakaway. He'd get right done. They'd bring the horse over. They'd take his saddle off. They'd throw my saddle on. We'd saddle him up. I'd go run my calf. We'd come back. We'd take my saddle off. We'd throw his saddle back on and just rinse and repeat. And what was so funny is I remember I was in such a state of going through the process that I wasn't even worried about roping the calf because I was like, oh my gosh, we got to think about unsaddling. I got to throw my saddle on. I got to tighten them. I got to get my rope tied on. Back in the box, go rope. Take it off. Do it all over again. And so I wasn't even in a state of trying because I was just literally living in the moment. And I ended up winning one of my very first jackpot ropings. And it was not on my own horse. It was not in a very comfortable way, shape, or form, but I still performed at a high level. I remember this one other time. This is my last story, and then we'll get into the lesson. I remember when I was in college and I had prepared what I thought very well that week. I'd worked my horse well. I'd prepared physically. I worked out that week, and I roped pretty good. And I remember I got to the rodeo, the college rodeo, how it seemed like I woke up before everybody else. No one else was awake that morning. We're up in the morning slack. I'm up, ate my breakfast. I fed my horse before everybody's up. I've gone ahead and show sheen my horse. I saddled my horse. I'm one of the first ones in there to start warming up. I warm my horse up. I'm stretched out before the calf roping even starts. I got all my ropes ready. I got everything planned out. And while I'm doing that, I'm just thinking and thinking and thinking about my run, thinking about it. And I remember calf roping gets started, and I feel like I'm really, really prepared. I'm almost overthinking it. And I remember this kid comes running down the alleyway. Looks like his hat's been crushed. His shirt's barely tucked in. He's been wearing the outfit he wore the night before. You can tell he looks like he's hungover. He jumps on a borrowed kid's horse because he didn't have his horse saddled. He borrows a rope, borrows a string, and guess what? He goes out there and makes a run. And I guarantee you this, he didn't know it anywhere where he was. And I went out there more prepared than I thought, and at trying harder, and I ended up dinking it in the dirt. Just something that you're like, what are you doing? I was so frustrated because I was like, how is this guy that doesn't even know where he's at perform better than someone who seemed like he was prepared, but really I was in the state of trying. And I know that you have been in the same spot. And so I want to get us into a place where we're not in a state of trying, because it is not a mindset for success. Successful people flow in performance. Did you know that? One thing about athletes, you have a successful athlete and you have an unsuccessful athlete. A successful athlete is someone who focuses on preparation and flows in performance. Unsuccessful athletes, what do? They focus on the performance. Like me, but then lack in proper preparation. You say, well, Ryan, you said that you got up early and you roped and you did all the things you needed to that week and you prepared. And although I did, I wasn't preparing right. So trying can still be in your mindset if you're not preparing correctly. So we're going to talk about that too as well. So let's get into it. One of the things that I said is I like to bring biblical principles to the table because it's the foundation of truth. And I just want to help you understand that trying is not a biblical characteristic. And you might ask why? Why is trying not a biblical characteristic? And I want to prove this to you. So trying is not a biblical characteristic because it leaves the excuse of not doing something that you determined that you said you would do. Let me say that again. Trying is not a biblical characteristic because you are making the excuse of not doing something that you determined or said that you were going to do. I want to give an example. Have you ever been invited to a friend? Let's say your friend invites you on a Friday night. Says, hey, man, hey, girl, I want you to come and I want you to spend the evening with me. I want to just have fun. We're going to have some friends over, yada, yada, yada. And all week you've been working, you've been busting your tail, you've been roping and riding, you got a rodeo on Saturday, you got all this stuff, and the last thing you want to do is go and hang out. But because you like your friend, guess what you say? You say, well, I'll try to come. I'll try to be there. And, I've been really tired and I don't know if I'm going to make it, but I'll try. And guess what you basically are telling them? You're saying, I'm going to make the excuse that I might be there, but let me tell you this, I'm probably not. But you make it sound like you give hope to them in the fact that you're going to actually show up, but you don't. You end up saying, hey, can't make it tonight at the last minute. Thought I was going to, I'm just so wore out. I'm so tired. And so the biggest problem with having a mindset of trying is you make excuses. And guess what excuses are? Excuses are hidden lies that we think are justifiable. Lies that we tell ourselves to give us the excuse, to give us a reason why we didn't actually do what we said we're going to do. I mean, how many people say, I tried to go to the gym the first 2 weeks of the new year? Yeah, they tried. And they tried to hang on to it, but they didn't because they are so used to making excuses, so used to saying something and then not following up with it. And so they get in a state of trying and they actually fail. This is crazy. Did you know that people who are trying to not fail and succeed, they actually end up failing because they're in this place of trying? People who try to succeed are failing. Why? Because you don't try to succeed. You just simply succeed. And I'm going to prove that a little bit more to you. So let's go into the biblical principles. Why? How can we prove that trying is not a biblical characteristic through making the excuses and all that stuff? Well, first we have to look at who God is. And it says in the Bible that God is the way, the truth, and the life. Okay? So I want you to pay attention to the word truth. That's important because if trying is in a state of lying to ourselves, making excuses, then we got to know what truth is, right? And so if God is the way, the truth, and the life, it also says that God is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow, which means he's going to do what he says he's going to do. Even if he says it yesterday, he's still going to do it today and still going to do it tomorrow. I don't know about you. I've done this before. I've made a plan yesterday and I've changed it 30 minutes from that plan. And then I've changed it the next day. And so I am very inconsistent with saying that I'm going to do what I'm saying I'm going to do. But God is not. God is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And so he's also the way and the truth and the life. So we have these ideas that God isn't changing. He doesn't change the way that he does things. He does things because this is the way that you do them. And he's also true to who he is. That's interesting, right? So I want us to look at some verses here that I think are really, really incredible. So I love John 1:1. John 1:1 says that in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And if you're a believer, you know that the Word means basically the truth. So if we were to paraphrase this a little bit differently, this is what it says. It says, in the beginning, there was truth, and the truth was with God, and the truth was God. So that's very important to understand because if God is the essence of truth, if the Word of God is God, then we have to understand what that really means. Because in Genesis, it says, God said that he made us in his image and that If that's what that means, then that means we should have the same characteristics of him. Okay. And so I'm going to get ready to prove to you that these characteristics not only are ungodly, but they follow a different thing than God. We'll show that here in a second. So Numbers 23:19. This is the other verse I want to talk to you about. It says that God is not man, so he does not lie. Oh, he is not human, so he does not change his mind like you and me. Does he has he ever spoken and not failed to act? No. Has he ever promised and not carried it through? No. What God says he's going to do, he's going to do. He sticks to it. He's not in a state of, I'm going to try to do something. He says, no, this is what we do. This is how we do it. And we're going to go. And the interesting thing is God flows in everything. Everything that God desires to have happen, it happens. It flows. It has purpose, and it's going to do what it was intended to do. The enemy, Satan, has to try for everything. Did you know that? Satan has to try to tempt you. He has to try to get you to fall. He has to try to do that, because the only way that he has power is if you give it to him. If he has the legal right after you fall into the sin, that he then is able to have access to part of your life to do what he wants, because you've given legal access to him by being disobedient to what God called you to do, because the wages of sin is death. And so there's just a consequence. There's a result to those things. So if we understand that the enemy is always trying, that is his mode, that's his mindset. But God's mindset and his way of doing things is through flow and truth, then we have to understand something. We may have to be true to ourselves, right? We may need to be changing the way that we do things. So God in the Bible is a person of truth. It says, let your yes be yes and your no be no, which means there's no room in between for trying. You can't try to be something. You can't try to do something. You either determine that you're going to be it, or you're going to determine not to do that thing. And so that is one of the mindset shifts that we need to first have if we're going to get out of the state of trying. Listen, whenever we're practicing, how do we institute this? How do we prepare different? Because just like I was talking to you about how I was preparing for the rodeo, I felt like I was prepared, but I prepared it incorrectly. I wasn't training my mind to think on how it needed to think when I get to the rodeo, because successful athletes focus on preparation, but they flow in performance, whereas unsuccessful athletes, they focus on the performing aspect of it and don't actually focus on intentional preparation, which means the person that gets jacked up at the rodeo is the one that is so focused on the result, focused on not doing what they think they can do, not actually staying true to who they are during the performance. The person that is successful is the one that is able to incorporate the ability to stay true to themselves, to focus on preparing for high pressure situations and knowing exactly what they can do on any cap that they're given, so that whenever they go to the rodeo and they have that setup, they can institute the same principles, the same mindset, and the same ability that they possess in the practice game and transfer it over into the rodeo arena. So one of the things that I tell my clients is this: it's not about, yeah, we got to get a lot of reps, but we got to get quality over quantity a lot of times. Quantity with quality is, you can't beat it, right? But if we don't have very good quality, if we're not thinking how we're going to be needing to think when we get to the rodeo, we're going to be in trouble. So this is what I want you to do. I want you this week to make sure that when you're practicing, that you set out for yourself something that is a pressure situation, that is a little bit hard to do, but you're going to purpose it in your mind, not to try to get the result, but you're going to test yourself to see if you can do it without any flaw or mess up. Then, and whenever you can say what you're going to do and you can follow through with it, you can start gaining assurance that you can trust yourself. The way that a lot of people build confidence, and we'll get to that here in a second, but one of the ways is they keep promises to themselves. They know that if they say they're going to do something, they can actually carry it out and do it. It's a gift. It isn't an ability, because not many people do that. I mean, you see all the time people trying to do high level things, but then they don't have habitual practices of doing what they say they're going to do. So they start really strong, but they get burnt out. And we don't want to be those people. We want to be able to be someone that starts strong, stays very steady, and finishes really strong. So this week, when you're practicing, let's say you're a tie down roper. Let's say we're on the ground. Can you tie a calf, no mistakes, 10 times in a row? 10 times in a row. You would get pretty confident if you could string, cross, tie, boom, boom, boom. No mistakes. String, cross, tie, boom, 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 no mistakes. 10 times in a row. And you keep expanding that as the weeks go by. But imagine you can say, okay, today I'm going to focus on a strong front leg, a strong vise, and tying tight 10 times in a row, no mistakes. If you mess up, that's fine. Start back over. But you need to learn how to put the pressure on a situation, keep the promise to yourself, and then do it. Another thing, let's say you're a breakaway roper. Let's say you got 3 different calves. You say, okay, I want to this week, every day that I practice, I want to run 3 different types of calves. I want to run a slow calf, I want to run a medium calf, and I want to run a calf that takes off with its tail on fire. I want to be able to score well and get it around their neck every single time within 3 seconds. Okay? That puts the pressure on because not only do you have to score correctly, but you have to rope it within a certain amount of distance. So that puts the pressure on your loop. And if you can actually get prepared and know and study your calves and know how to do that, then you keep promises to yourself. You actually go out there and do it. Then when you go to the rodeo and you got one of those 3 calves, you got a slow loper, you got a medium runner, or you got the hard runner, you know exactly what you can do, and you can trust you and your horse to do it. That's the other thing. A lot of people may be able to say that they can do it, but then they can't even get their horse to do what they're trying to do. So that's a big thing. You got to make sure that you can do it, your horse can do it, and then everything comes together because you guys are a team and a partner. So the first lesson today, the first thing, let's go back. The first recap is we're going to get out of the state of trying to get a result. We're going to stop trying to do that, but we're going to keep promises to ourselves by putting pressure situations on us in the practice pen and training our mind to say, I'm going to do this, and you have to do that. And then see where the results are. Take the analytics, take the insights, and say, dude, I tried doing this, but I messed up. I'm not there. I'm not mentally tough enough. I'm not strong enough there. But I'm going to be. I'm going to go ahead and go back. I got to keep a promise to myself. Start changing it up on those certain situations. All right, now I want to go number 2. This is what a lot of people are excited for. How to get confidence. Confidence. I want confidence. That's what everybody's after, and a lot of people don't know how to get it. And I think if someone could pay money just to download confidence, they would think it's awesome. But this is one of the interesting things is there's a lot of people out there that have false confidence, which is arrogance. They are very prideful. They seem like they're confident, but really deep down they're insecure, and they hide it by being arrogant or prideful. They start talking about how good they are and everything. Let's not be like that because that's false. It's fake. It's not really real. There's a really big insecurity underneath. And so sometimes as athletes, we think we got to be that way because some of these people who are like that, they back it up every once in a while. But at the end of the day, do you really want to be their friend? No. And we want to be people that are impactful, that have influence, that have the ability to speak into people's lives, to use the gifts, talents, and abilities that God's given us to actually change people. And if we want to have that approach to people, we have to be people that are humble, but we have to be people that are confident. We got to be good at what we do, and we have to have influence and impact, and people to have this authenticity about us of saying, I don't know everything, but I do know these things, and I do know that I'm human, but I do know I rely on God and His strength to give me wisdom and these abilities to focus on them. When you can do that, it becomes really awesome. So let's go. I want to break down something, the word confidence. Have you ever broken down the word confidence before? So you can agree with me. This is how we spell confidence, right? CONFIDENCE. Confidence. And I want to start with the first 3 letters. CON. Con. Did you know that CON means together with? That prefix, that's what that means, together with. And then fidence, what does that sound like? Sounds like fidelity. Well, fidence or fidelity means truthfulness, faithfulness, or loyalty. So confidence in its essence, in its simplest form, is together with loyalty, faithfulness, trustworthiness to yourself. That's what confidence is. That's based on not being a person that tries, right? So a lot of times we take the confidence route of having the fake vision of it arrogant, prideful. But the reality is confidence is having the ability to be all together with faithfulness, trustworthiness, and loyalty to ourselves. What does that mean? That means exactly what I was talking about before. We have to keep the promises to ourselves. If we're gonna say we're gonna do something, we have to follow through with it. We have to do it. And so I see all the time people back in the box and they say they're gonna see this much. And guess what they see? This much. You ever been there? Oh yeah, we've all done it. We all make the mistake. But some people do it over and over and over. And you'll get coaches or people that say, I tell him that all the time. He just can't score. He just can't score. And it's not that he can't score, it's that he doesn't trust himself or he doesn't trust his horse. And so you, as an athlete, if you're having that problem, first of all, you got to fix you. Then you got to fix your horse. And if you guys can get on the same page, then you guys can be successful because your horse is going to read if you're confident or not. If you're going and pulling, if you're going and then you're throttling the whole time and you do that consistently, that horse is never going to fire out of there when you got to get out on a quick breakaway run. You're going to be, 3-4 tenths off the winning run every time. Maybe way longer because you pulled up and you had a fast cat. So keep the promises to yourself. Guys, these are the two things that I had for you today. If you can apply and get out of a mindset of trying, don't be a trier, be a doer. One of the funny things is people think failing is hard. So they think success must be much harder. The reality is people who flow in performance are not trying hard. I mean, I remember times whenever I've tied a calf in 7, I was not trying. It just happened. It literally happened. I literally put the things that I've done in the practice pen into the work, kept promises to myself, and boom, I made a 7-second run. But there's been times where I've been trying to push, trying hard, and I make more mistakes. I should have been 7 or 8, and I ended up being 10, 11, 12. I don't know you guys had the same thing. Get out of a state of trying. It is not a biblical characteristic because you are making little lies to yourself, making excuses for not doing what you said you're going to do. It is not who God intended for you to be. It's not the mindset of the success that he created. You're actually following the principles that the enemy has set up and how he functions. Confidence. Keeping promises to yourself. That is how you're going to gain confidence. This week, this month, this year, that's what it's all about. Guys, I'm so excited to be able to bring these things to you because if you really take them, if you're really action takers, if you're really ready to bring these things into your life, it will change you. It will help you. It will build into you. You'll start breaking down the strongholds that are in your life and you'll be able to start living free to compete, free to be able to flow in performance. And that is the most exciting and freeing thing that I've ever witnessed in my rodeo career, was being able to compete with a free mind, knowing that I can do these things through preparation, through keeping promise to myself, through having the mindset of Christ. You guys can apply these things, it will change your life. Guys, next week, I'm going to bring a absolute hitter. I'm so excited to give you the next week's mental game performance coaching message. So stick around, and I'll see you on the next one. My name's Coach Ryan Franks. Have a good one.